All right. Let's see what people got today. Because you know I'm thirsty. So you know I want the juice. I want the juicy painting. I'm going to get them one way or another. Not only now. All right. Let's take a look at. I think I want to take a look at Leo's and I think Leo's and Scott. I think those are the two that I did last time. So um, so let's just open up. Let's open up Leo's first, and then we'll probably go to Scott, and then actually let me look at Corey's. I think Corey's was the one that I did kind of late. Why is my computer being so slow today? Hey, stop being slow, computer. Okay. Let's go with Corey first, real quick, and then we will move on. Okay. So, Corey, what's up, man? Look at you
Hey, how you
putting
doing?
in these shapes. I like it.
Yeah, so when I did those, I didn't have access to a tablet, so that's all like with the mouse and stuff. So um, sort of technical, not not sketches.
Okay, well, it still looks good. So like you if you can do it with the mouse, you can do it with the tablet. So because the tablets are usually harder to or mouse is usually hard to paint with. So I definitely dig that. So that's good.
So I mean, the paintings I was able to use a tablet with. It was just the perspective stuff that I
Okay,
did the mouse on.
cool. So it looks like we are doing some screenshots from Mad Max. It looks like in another
That's
movie. Okay,
yeah,
let's see here.
anomaly.
And Amelie, that's a good one.
Yeah,
Good movie. So let's see here. Um, I'm gonna go to the Evan Richards blog archives because I'm pretty sure they have Mad Max underneath there. So let me just go to Film Index and see if we can find said image that you were working off of, and it looks like it's that one. So,
yeah.
so good. Or not, probably this one. Yeah. Let's just drag that one off quickly, and we're gonna drag it back on. So I think the shapes, I still want you to do that throughout the week, but with the tablet though, just so you're getting more comfortable. But let's see how we can work with this. And I think some of the bigger issues that I'm seeing is just how you're organizing your shapes. And I think we can be a little more literal with that. So when I'm working, when you're working with this kind of stuff, um, what I want you to think about is just put this up above everything. There we go. I want you to think about how are we organizing the big and small shapes and the values. Okay. So if I make this kind of black and white, so we can look at this and we'll do one together, just kind of very briefly here. Um, I'm seeing about maybe 4 or 5 different layers of detail, and I want to be able to paint each of those in. So when I'm painting here, um, I will, grab a darker value, and I'll try to use a big brush and try not to um, think too much about the individual details. So I can kind of see you're doing it here. Um, I'd rather see you try to just kind of paint in just the basic forms. And so let's say that we are doing this part right here, and I'm gonna paint in this big kind of mountain shape here. All I want to do is I want to kind of get the lay of the land going so that as it goes off in perspective, it feels like it's getting smaller, and we just want to use a big brush kind of block that in. Even if it isn't like the right value, we know that if we get that shape right on its own layer, we can then eventually, erase like what I'm doing now, and we can kind of paint that in, or we can kind of sculpt that. But for now, like my main goal is to get the major shapes going, right? So that's what I'm kind of focusing on right now, is getting that. And I don't have to get it right the first time, meaning that I don't have to, this doesn't have to be perfect the first time because right now we're just kind of blocking it in. So as I begin to put the next piece in, let's say it's this piece right here, that's kind of in front of it, I know that how things are going to lay are going to be very, very important. And I just want to do my best here to like just lock that in. So once you kind of get that stuff in, then it's much, much easier to kind of move stuff around and kind of see how things are kind of being composed as a whole. So I don't get too worried around this phase. Like for me, it's more so just getting the proper separation in before I really do any kind of like compositional editing, stuff like that. So this is probably like both of these could probably go a little bit higher. So now that I'm looking at it, right, the ground plane is like pretty high in relationship to that. So I need to kind of, you know, push that out a little bit more. See? And then now we're kind of starting to figure some things out. And we can kind of push it here and there. And move that. And I'm just going to make the brush a little bit smaller. Okay. And then we have this value here, which is going to go underneath everything. And that's going to be, you know, nice value. So, and hopefully you can see the difference there. And as I begin to kind of paint in this gradation here, that is, hey, what just happened? Oh, I painted in the wrong layer. Sorry. There you go. As I begin to kind of paint this gradation in, that's kind of what I am looking for. So there's a little bit of like a smaller gradation in there, and I can probably, you know, grab that value too. But for the most part, I don't even care about that stuff. Like all I care about is just the kind of arrangement of shapes. I want to get that down. So hopefully you can see in comparison right now, I'm not too concerned about like the crazy details at the moment. Like it's really just about you know, how are things being composed one in front of the other, and that's what I would like you to kind of think about when you're doing some more movie studies for me this weekend. Is I'm not really sitting there trying to like paint every single detail. It's more so, can I look at it and kind of create a simplified version of it? And so that's what I would like you to kind of think about moving forward. And also, you may want to have perspective in here as well, just because um, this is kind of a very perspective heavy kind of scene, just because of the way it's composed with the car. So, um, you know, as I'm kind of building that out, you know, I may need to kind of use a brush that may be a little bit easier to understand. So I'm using more of this kind of brush. And I'm hoping that I can just kind of get the shadow in there and get all that stuff in there first, because it's kind of important that that reads correctly. And then I can begin to, you know, paint in, you know, certain highlights and all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? So like that's kind of important. So that's where I would probably start. And that's where I would recommend, if you were to kind of do this again, this is how I recommend you would start, is really kind of focus on like this stuff first, as opposed to like all the individual details. So you can see the difference here is you're kind of focusing on all these smaller things right there. And I don't think it's that important. You know what I mean? Like I'd rather you focus on like how is it being composed. Once you get there, you know, once you get it in a nice kind of composed fashion, then it's easier to kind of go in here and you know, paint all this little detail and stuff like that. and things of that nature. But I'd rather us just be very, very careful about that. Okay. So as I'm kind of, painting in there, all that kind of stuff, like all I really wanted was like that nice kind of gradation of that rock that's very, very dark. So that's really, really easy. It's just a small gradation of light to dark. I don't think we need to go anything further than that. And the rest can kind of just be this lighter value. And that's totally okay. So that's where I would like us to be in the future. It's just kind of very, 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 very simple. We don't need it to be any more complicated than that. So there we go. So that's kind of where I'd like you to be. And then you can add all detail stuff later. So then, this guy, if you were to add that detail, then good, but it's going to be very, 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 very light. And again, the brush strokes are very minimal here. It's not anything too crazy. Okay.
Okay.
So let's see if we can redo some of these and try to use like get very accurate with some of this stuff. So if you have to use like a lasso tool when you're painting stuff, you know what I mean? Like that's totally fine. But I want you to be like sharp with your. I want to say be exact. But I want you to be sharp. So like if you have to, you have to kind of fill a shape in and then kind of paint over it, then that's totally fine too. But I just want there to be a very good cleanliness to your designs before we begin to kind of get painterly. You know what I mean? So try to be a little bit more exact first, and then you can kind of be, a little bit more looser as you go. And then what I would also suggest is that don't be afraid to layer this up. So if these are overlapping, draw one part first, then draw, this part, and then draw that part. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's what I'd recommend. And hopefully, if we do that, it will make your life a lot easier forward. Okay. So let's see if we can do that. Let's see if we can do one more page. But this actually, by the way, the face looks really, really nice. By the way, like it's pretty good. But yeah, so I just want to make sure that we learn how to be exact. And if you can bring in when you do these next ones, just bring in the PSD again, because then I want to take a look at how you're layering stuff. We can go from there. But I just want a little bit more simplicity. So when you're drawing these things, just really think about how many layers there are. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7. So I want you to kind of evaluate it like that. See what we can do when we paint that out. Okay?
Okay.
Cool. So I will save that for you. Let's do one more round. Hopefully, the small shapes were great. Let's keep doing that. Try something a little more complicated, because apparently you can do it with a small mouse. So apparently, when you have it with a Wacom tablet, you should be able to do it even easier.
Cool. Yeah, I really wanted to show that I do understand perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just wanted to get it done.
Cool. Let's do one more page of this with the tablet, just to kind of get that going. And because I don't think it's a matter of understanding perspective, but more so proportions. Like, how are you composing shapes? And I think if we do that maybe one more time, I think we can then spend the next 2 weeks on kind of now just executing and doing some cool stuff. Okay? Cool.
That is one of the things that I think I struggle with is why shapes look good together.
Yeah, and that's gonna help you figure that out a lot in terms of drawing. Also, there's actually a great video or videos by let me see here, QBrush, by Chris Robinson. That I really recommend. Is it Chris Robinson? I think it's Chris Robinson. Hold on a second. Let me go into my library. Who the fuck is selling Christmas trees on the thing? That's weird. Never mind. Joe Peterson. God, I'm a fucking idiot. Okay. Joe Peterson. Joe Peterson has some really good, like hard surface like tech tips, but I think the way that he breaks things down is like really good, and I'd highly recommend it. You can kind of actually see it right there, the way he's drawing stuff, um, the way he's breaking down those shapes. It's like really good, like really, really, really good. And he's like talking about subtracting, like subdivision, all that kind of stuff. It's like, yeah, it's the shit.
Awesome.
Fully recommend it. Okay, so I'll actually post that in the chat. So you have that, and it's like, how much is it? It's like $5. Kind of good for you. Cool. I own it. It's the shit. Okay, let's go to Leo. There's a bunch of stuff. See here. Okay. All right, Leo. Okay. I'm not sure if you want to go this far with it, Leo, in terms of the exterior elements. Like, I don't think you need to go that far. I think more just a couple of little lines here and there to kind of give it a little bit more oomph to it, but I don't think you need to go that far. So, let's see what we got here. So, I think when you have this in here, it then becomes a little bit too much. Like, then like the space becomes a little bit weird. So I kind of like the overall space from the earlier one. I just think that you want to maybe have certain things poke out just a little bit more. So if I were to draw this out, looks like if I were to erase this wall, what would happen? Oh, it's just pure black. Oh, that's okay. So we could add stuff to it then, meaning that we could simply just grab a line, and we can just draw from here to there. So little stuff like that can be really, really nice. And we're just going to kind of follow that perspective line all the way down. And then we can actually just, draw that like that, right? And then now we have this nice little line right here that we can kind of mess with. Boom. Okay, so look at that. So just from like a little piece there, and then you can actually kind of repeat the same thing right here. So that now it kind of feels like there's like two of them or something like that. So that could be kind of nice. So I'm kind of sculpting it on the forms that you already had. I don't think we need to kind of like add too much to the piece. Or we don't need to add too many forms because it was already working. I felt like the way it was already. So then once you kind of get that kind of stuff in there, what's kind of nice that you can kind of do is you can begin to add like trim and stuff. And trim is kind of fun to me in a certain way because when you add like trim in certain places, let's say it's like a kind of a lighter value here or a darker value, and then begin to kind of put that in. And then we can even begin to think of material indication in certain places. So usually, like, if you look at your perspective, you're probably going to have a different material, at least on the bottom right here. And so then we can begin to kind of play with that idea too as well. And so maybe this one's a little bit lighter. And these are the things that you want to like think about when you want to add more like kind of life to stuff. And so now I'm kind of messing with that. And so now we're starting to kind of have a little fun here in terms of like breaking this stuff down. Yeah. So now I see how it's kind of like adding a little bit more to it. Like,
yeah.
Now we can maybe add another layer, another kind of line there, kind of going across. maybe it's kind of like cut into it a little bit, and then maybe add like a second line or something. Right. And then boom. All right. So now it feels like there is like a second piece there, right? Like a second piece of material, that kind of stuff. So that's what I want to see a little bit more out of you. And so like for instance, like right here, this is probably where I would take this particular like piece and maybe make this all a little bit darker than usual. So everything has like its own kind of value a little bit, its own like neutral value. So if I was painting this, oh, come on, cool. You can have that shadow, but then maybe you say, you know what, maybe this is like a different material in general, and then it just kind of adds to it. So that can kind of be a nice little addition to your piece. That. So now it kind of feels like that is a different value than that. Like maybe it's a different material. It's kind of what I'm going. So don't be afraid to kind of break that mold a little bit and add those things in there. And as you kind of add those things in there, it will do a lot for you. So if I turn this off, you'll see what I mean here. So let me kind of break this off. So I think right now the issue is kind of looking at it is maybe we're just like not having enough variety in your in the local values, and I think that will save you a lot of like design issues as you're moving. So that could be cool. And then looks like this guy. Is this all dark? Yes, it is. All right. And then I would even think about adding that in here as well. And don't be too dark with certain things. I kind of like it, but you always want to make sure you have a little bit of design in there, just in case. So, like, what might be even like a cooler idea is to kind of give this wall a little bit more loving. So, hey, what's on top of this? Nothing? Nope. Well, why can't I paint over it? Weird. All right, whatever it is. So, I'm trying to draw it in perspective. I'm going to keep my brush kind of small here. And then you can kind of, maybe have this go over it a little bit. So like, what could be cool here is that we, kind of like what you were already doing, but we just maybe kind of lower the intensity of it. So yeah, something like that. So that way you can still like put like design elements in there. You know what I mean? So that might be something kind of worth exploring there a little bit. And then on top of that, what we could do is maybe this is a little bit difficult just because of the angle here, but it is what it is. Like it. We could definitely throw in, little hints of, and I just want to work on just the yeah. You can throw in little hints of little small details, of maybe stuff that's kind of going in. There you go. So very, very like subtle details. So maybe there's like a little bit of a arch right there or something. And we can kind of let that lie as well. So that's what I want to see a little bit more. It's just smaller, like tertiary details. I think is kind of what you're missing, and I don't think you needed to. I don't think we needed to like change the form of it too much. I felt like we just needed to kind of add in this small little incremental changes here and there, right there, and It's there. So, and then if we were to turn that off, hopefully you can see what's kind of happening now. Like we're kind of just, you had the texture already figured out. Now it's just a matter of like making it look good. And that's where I would kind of start for now. And I would try to avoid, like, I would just use more gradations there. I wouldn't go like pure black. I think like it's cool. I think it was cool in the beginning, but then it was kind of hard to like get anything going. I think so. Like try to get a little bit more, or try to find a light source there, just so it kind of just it kind of hints at detail, so we don't have to worry about it too much. And right, so now we're kind of just working on that kind of texture idea, and so now there's a little bit of like a light and dark there. Right. So now it's like we're more forced to kind of think about like which direction that we're going. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what I like to see. And then of course, if that's going to be right there, then maybe there's going to be some kind of transitional kind of piece kind of going there. It'll probably feel kind of blocky, but it's probably a good thing if the computer's not fucking slow to make it a little bit easier. And there we go. All right, so there's all kinds of cool stuff that we could be doing. You could even think about the patterning of here, like it's going to be some kind of cool pattern, like if it's marble or whatever. That can be kind of important to see. And as we do some stuff, like this angle gets kind of weird just because it's like right there. So that's probably my fault actually. Here. Yeah, I think that is my fault. But I have to be a little bit careful here that I don't mess this up. Whoops. There you go. And then I'm going to, just make sure that I inverse the selection so that way. Okay, cool. I'll turn that off. Well, and I think that's kind of where we want to go a little bit here. It's just getting in like some kind of that a little bit of paint that then makes it feel like there's something on top of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think those are the little details that we want to get to. And I think when you do this stuff right here, you don't have to like paint in every little detail in there. Like let some details lie. Like meaning that you can paint something because it's kind of far away in the distance. Like you can just put it like that and then just kind of paint over it. Like, you know what I mean? Like you don't have to put the highlight in there too. Like I don't think you'd even see it from that angle. So some of these lines are like super defined. I don't think that should happen from that distance. Like just let some things be very, very simple. Like I wouldn't even suggest even putting this in there because it stands out way too much. So like very, very subtle is probably where you want to go with it. Where it's like there's a line there just by assuming because of all the perspective lines are right there. But then because it's so far away, we kind of just slowly kind of like push that out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's what I would suggest too, like to kind of get some of that juiciness quality back, is just let that stuff kind of not be seen so much. So, and then I would even go so far as to kind of like continue this, even though it's probably out in light. I'd probably create some kind of nice gradation here, just because, so that way it's not too much different, and then we can work from there. And then I would even suggest, because this looks a little weird right here, these two shapes being so dark, either we like lighten it up or we just kind of paint it out. I'm not sure. Like I think we want to keep it a little bit more simpler this time around. So let me wait for my brush to fucking catch up. Come on, brush. Jesus Christ. I'm gonna have to like restart my computer right now. Like what is open? It's killing me. Okay, there you go. You making smoothies? Yeah, see? There you go. Lady made me a smoothie. Week 2. What she caught on. All right. It's matcha. She went this. She was like, yeah. Finally. See, when you treat your woman right on Valentine's Day, you get smoothies in the morning. Telling you. Telling you. All right. Anyways, all right, small stuff, just like that. That's what I think we want to let's make this space right here look cool, and then we can kind of figure everything else out. So I think when we're looking at stuff, I think that Nick Yindro kind of piece interior was kind of like what I would like to see in
Mm-hmm.
terms of just simplicity with your design, and I think that's where you want to go with it. So now, if you want to, let's grab the perspective line here, just so we can kind of fix everything else up. So now, if you want to, um, see, where does that line up? Cool. So now, if you want to continue that shape, so it kind of lines up, then you can totally do that. So just some kind of architectural stuff I want you to just kind of get comfortable kind of painting here with me, kind of work that out. And then of course, if like you're liking that, then maybe we kind of get that little connection going first. And then we can kind of paint that out as well. You know what I mean? Maybe it's like a little bit of a, you know, bit of a patterning, something like that. And tapering. I mean, tapering is kind of like the big deal here. Like I'm always trying to taper stuff off. So like I will always try to add like an extra kind of layer. It's from like museums and stuff like that, or anything that's like really really epic. They always kind of have like this epic tapering to it. Stuff like of light, dark,
Mm-hmm.
medium, small. They always kind of have that. Those are things that you want to do. It just makes it that much more um, iconic to look at, and even kind of like maybe you add a little bit of a little curve in there. You know what I mean? Maybe this guy is. So obviously this guy is probably like way too big. So then you can kind of draw all the way across and kind of line that up accordingly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's what I want to see more. Is like more of these like little subtle some of the smaller tertiary details
Mm-hmm.
is what's going to help sell the piece a lot more in particular. So that's what I think would be pretty cool to see. More so than kind of adding more geometry. I think you can just like add more form to it, kind of going off in those different directions, and then kind of play with that a little bit. So let me bring up that piece again real quick, and I think in terms of where we want to go with it, that's where I would aim for it. Okay. Yeah, here we go. Oh, so I still fucking had it. That's ironically. Um, you see how there's kind of like little paint shifts here,
Yeah.
all the little details. That's all you really needed, right? It's really just small. The texture is working, so you can see that texture kind of all going down. But the smaller stuff is what you needed to have. Okay, so
All right.
that's what I would be aiming for. So let's see if we can do that one more time. Let's not try to hide too much behind the darkness. I think it's cool. It's very dramatic, but we don't want to like use it for everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So let's see if we can get some of that like, and even where his things are really really dark, there's always some kind of light like pushing around a little bit. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's where I want you to kind of be pushed around, in terms of your design. Okay. Does that make sense a little bit? Like where we're
Yeah. Yeah. No.
yeah. So let's kind of get this in a nicer. So how about this? Let's get this looking nice, just with diffuse lighting, meaning that like there's no crazy lights or shadows, and then we can kind of add the lights on top of everything later. How about that?
Yeah. It works.
The shadows. I think that would be a better way to go. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. And then we can add some more stuff right there, and then this is looking cool. Um,
Yeah. That is a something that I'm working for freelance. It's gonna be for an animatic, and the one on top is a sketch that they gave me, and then So they told me to work on the background on it. I think somebody else is working on the kits and the things that are the airplanes that are flying over.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, very cool. I'm digging this. Um, some of these little details right here, I think we can learn to be a little more simpler with it.
Okay.
Bring us in next week and let me think about it a little bit more.
Okay.
But what I would look at though in terms of like simplicity is Leonid. Yeah, I think he has. I think he has a strong sense of what you're trying to do here. And I think his shit is tight. That's what I would think of when I'm looking at it. It's more like you can nail this down. I'm pretty sure. So, let's get this out for you. Oh, lady, bringing the smoothie. What's up? All right, thank you. Is it matcha? What is it? Oh yeah, yeah. Mm. So I have to wait for it to kind of melt down a little bit. Okay. Sure. No, actually, no. I'll wait for it to melt down a little bit. Okay. You don't have to close the door if you're just leaving. Are you leaving? Okay, cool. Yeah, lady gave me like a matcha. I don't know what it is, but matcha, spinach. It's all healthy shit. I need to lose weight for weddings, man. Okay, let's get this out. And bam. And that's for you. So get this going. I want this to. Mm, there you go. Cool. Yeah, I would look at that guy's art station. I think that's probably like the quality and just the execution level that you're going for. And I think that would be
Mhm.
a lot. Okay. Let's see here. Moving on. Moving on. So we did Leonardo. Did Corey. Sweet. Okay. We are one more up. Let's go with we did just did. Oh, let's go with Scott. Sweet. What's up, Scott?
Yeah, it was good.
Good, good, man. Dude, these are sick. Now we are getting somewhere. Okay, so let's see. Okay, this is making more sense now. How we're doing this. Okay, so we have layers, right?
Yeah, yeah, they're in the groups in the right?
Yes. So if we have this, let me give me all this.
Before your classes, I would tend to paint a few layers. I was a lot more conscious about the strokes I was making. OCD with the layers.
Yeah. So my question would be, why is this layer? So this layer is behind it. Okay. Okay, so never mind. It's behind it. No, actually, no. There's something in front of it. What is in front of it? I don't know. Sorry, I'm turning off like certain things here that I don't think we need. Okay, so like when we're looking at stuff like this, all you really need is we probably doesn't need to be that dark, by the way. That's actually like super dark. So that's probably the first thing. So when I'm looking at these guys, I probably want like a halfway mark in between, and I'm trying to kind of grab. So probably like that. I think might be a little bit nicer. And now I can see what that is. What is that? Is that just the? I don't know what that is. Okay, so we don't need that. I don't think. What is that? All right, let me hold on. So let me turn this off. Okay, we have that. We have that. What was that?
I think it's part of the same layer. I use the texture brush. I'm just trying to mix.
Okay. All right. So we don't need the texture. So let's see here. What did I just turn off? All right. That's probably all we needed right there. That's probably all we need is like this. That's nice separation. So don't So I think you might have like overcomplicated some of these layers here. I don't think we actually needed some of this stuff. So I'm actually gonna merge like all of this stuff down. I think for the most part. Let's see. I kind of just want the silhouette. So it's like this is gonna be merged down here, and let's see. All right. What about this guy? Okay. So, all right. Okay, so you know what? Let's start over. How about that? Because it's a little bit crazy, and I'm having trouble understanding. So, first, what we're gonna do? I'm gonna show you how to break this stuff down. So right now, it should probably be like two different things, probably three different things. So we have our values, right? We have that. That's cool. We're good to go. All right, we're already halfway there. Whoops. Make a new layer. Sorry. So that's one. The next layer that you have would be the ground layer, like so, and that will be two. All right, very, very simple. The next layer would be this piece right here, and I'm going to use the lasso tool for this just because it's a little bit easier to do this. And I will just go like bam, bam, like that. All right, and there you go. Might be a little bit too light, too dark actually. I want to give it a little bit of yeah, probably like right there. And the rest is going to be right. So I'll probably do like a two mountain thing here. So one will be probably like right there. Okay. And we'll just kind of grab a little bit of a value, help that out. And then it looks like everything else will be behind it. So you probably only needed like maybe well probably combined these here and two. So we definitely want to get in the habit of just being very, very direct with our shapes. So that way, when we design, it's a little bit easier. Now that we have the ground pattern going, I would probably make one more layer above it. And above that layer, I want to know where does the detail kind of stop, where the, where the perspective kind of begins. And it's probably in this area right here. So I'm going to make that a little bit darker, right? So that's kind of like our tier system here that we want to think about. Once you get that, now you can kind of go into your shapes individually, and you can begin to kind of paint into you can kind of add in extra little parts to the edges, right? So now I'm kind of going in there. I'm kind of like adding edges here. I'm kind of messing with it. Um, if there is some little extra pieces here and there, I see a little bit of like a light value in there. I can push that in there, and I can kind of paint over it, kind of see how it's kind of working now, very slowly but surely. If there is some dark areas right in there, I can now put those in. I'll lock the transparency. It kind of seems like we're seeing the bottom of certain little areas here, and so that's what I want to kind of show. So that's all that I'm really concerned about for the most part, what I'm doing. And I'm just using like one brush, nothing really kind of crazy texture. I don't think we need to have anything else. And so a lot of times too, I'll just kind of switch between dark and light shapes here. This will make it a little bit easier. So I took that one value and I put it on the secondary color palette that I have. And then I'm just kind of hitting X. I'm switching between both of them. So something like that could totally work. And then I can kind of just mess with this, right? So I'm kind of just taking my brush and I'm becoming like really, 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 really small with it. And just small stuff right there. is all you really needed. Okay, so like we just want to get some of those little pieces in there. Looks like there's some stuff kind of going in there as well. Like, boom, right? And now we're just kind of throwing those in there very, 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 very subtly. That's all that we needed. And then, if you want to kind of throw in like that texture or something like that, I mean, you could, but I'm not really concerned about like how you can paint forest. I just want you kind of like just fly it for the most part. Like, I don't think you need to do anything too crazy with that. Okay. Then when it comes down to all the other stuff, there you go. You can begin to kind of like mess with the edges there too. But notice how like I was very polygonal in the very beginning first before I even did any of that, and that's what I want you to kind of think about as you're making those strokes. Now here we can easily mess around with getting in some of those little highlights in there and stuff of that nature. So now we're kind of messing with that and kind of putting in these little light shapes in here. And we're gonna kind of just some small strokes. Like, you don't need a lot to kind of get that extra detail in there. And then on this guy, we'll probably throw in a couple of different, like, not like too much, but we want to do something that kind of shows that this is like a different level of detail than the other. So this is probably the hard part for me, just because like it's really, really hard to demonstrate that, I think, without getting too much in there. So I just need to get like something there. So it kind of shows that, all right, this is of importance happening. So, and I think like something around there might work, for now, at least. And then what we want to focus on is then maybe sculpting out the back end here. And then we can slowly kind of, cut into the shape, paint in a very subtractive manner. And if there is, light in there, you can lock the transparency, and then you can kind of, throw in some little details here and there. But I don't think it needs to be like super, super crazy. You know what I mean? Like, very, very subtle some of your stuff. This is where like selections are really, really important. That's what I want you to think about, is like, how are you making selections throughout your painting? Like, where are you adding detail, and where are you choosing to kind of do a lot of like layer selections and stuff like that. So that's kind of like lay the land kind of stuff, So kind of simple stuff, but like it's kind of important to think about. Yeah, I want you to go. And so a lot of it is not. I'm barely even doing anything as I'm pushing there. So the same thing like right here. You want to like separate a lot of these things so that way they're easier to paint, right? Because your stuff still gets a little bit like um, too messy. So like right here, like especially if you're doing like the paper, like that's like a really easy fix. Like just lasso it at that point. You know what I mean? Just like make the shape and grab the value and just drag down. There's a little bit of like a texture to it, then you can easily just drag across. You see what I mean? Just like that. Like, yeah. Very, very easy. If there's something underneath it, right? Then you just put a little bit of a value, right? Uh, why isn't this showing up? Oh, maybe that's why. Brush is too small. Oh, like there's something. All right, why is that not showing up? Oh, because you painted the whole thing out. Okay. All right. Yeah. So we want more separation then, with some of the stuff. You know what I mean?
Yes. When I started it, when I was doing the
my thumbnails. I separated easier, but when I started playing with these, that's when I sort of lost track of my layers.
Yeah. So actually, this is a really great piece to work on. I'm gonna encourage you to try to do this one again and see if we can organize the layers a little bit better. So here's how I would organize it. You would want to have this on its own layer, right? Like you want to draw things the way, like imagine how things were built. Like so, you want to get the wall first. So the wall is really, really important. So I would draw the wall. So you have the wall and you have the door, right? So that's one. You're gonna have this big chimney situation. That's gonna be two. This piece is gonna be its own layer as well. So that's gonna be like a three situation. You're gonna have this wall by itself. It's four. This is gonna be on its own layer. This is like the awning or some kind of window seal, and this whole thing's gonna be behind it. You're gonna have this door or this table behind it as well, and you're gonna want to paint through it, meaning that so that you can understand the perspective. Goodbye. Yes.
Yep.
Sorry, I think about it, lady. Bye. So you're gonna want to draw through that. You're gonna want to probably create a separate layer. Probably you could probably combine these two, together, so you don't have to worry about that. These will probably be in a separate layer as well. Same thing with this. The chair will be on a separate layer. Same with the plate, because the plate's going to go over it. It's going to go behind it. This is actually a really great image to practice, actually. I might have to use this a lot for future assignments. It's because there's so much going on. You have to be able to kind of break every fucking thing down, which is actually really cool.
You recommend putting everything into the study your image, don't miss out any of those objects.
Nope, that's the point of it, because you have to be able to, when you're working on environments stuff like that, you're gonna have to do all this stuff. You can't really skip out on it. And so the reason why this is actually a really great study is because there's so much shit in here. It's a very simple image. There's not anything complicated that you can't paint. Obviously you can paint all this stuff, but it's can you be organized? And that's where I'm kind of worried about it, because I'm not sure you can. And so and painting environments is all about organization, really. If you can be organized, if you're good at organization, you can paint an environment. And then on top of that, you gotta think about the lighting too. So I want to see if you can make me a nice PSD with what you painted, and I want to see if you can do this one more time. But I want everything to feel very, very nice and organized. Okay, so understanding that this wall needs to be separate from this because of the fact that it's going out in perspective, it's going in front of it. So this thing needs to be separate from that. So I want to see how well you're separating stuff, and you kind of did it, but you're still missing out on extraneous detail. And then as I kind of go through your layers, I'm kind of wait, why is this all on one layer? You know what I mean? As opposed to kind of doing a detail as a whole, I would say detail onto your layer. So have groups. If you had a group just right here, then you can have layers within that by linking them, right? You understand that part at least?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's how I would organize it. And I think that's the problem is as you're detailing stuff, you're doing it as a whole. It's hard to do things individually. So I would individually block it out, but notice how everything I detailed on only that layer, so it's easier to mess with.
Yeah, when I start adding detail, I sort of jump around the image a lot. I see something and I paint it, then I see something else and then I go left. And it's hard for me to sort of stick to, for example, the girl's face, and I just keep painting her and then ignore something left.
You can jump around, it's totally fine. I jump around too, but it's more so when you jump around, jump to a separate layer. And again, usually the way I do it is by holding down when I use the V tool, right, the move tool. You just hold down Control. It selects the layer for you. You know what I mean?
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So that might be the thing.
Yeah,
so if you hold,
I accidentally picked on layers sometimes. So that's what it makes me, sort of paint on the same layer a lot more. Then.
Yeah. So when I hold down Control, it does auto select, meaning that whatever I click on, it will go to that layer and I'll paint on it directly. Now, if you're having trouble with that, what should you do with your layers?
Just
group them and name them. All right.
Yeah.
Good housekeeping. If you want to have people like you in the industry, name your layers. When I give my layers to my UI designer, they fucking love me because I name everything. It's color coded. I go to each thing and I color code it and I go, that's gonna be red. Yeah, you can right click and it says yellow. Like everything is organized. You can't fuck it up. So they like me for that because they're like, hey, can I get the PSD because I want to put this on the website? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And then I just give it to them, and they're like, oh shit, this is all organized. Like, I don't have to really think about it, right? You want to paint the way you like organize stuff. Like if you're not really organized, it will show in your paintings. Like you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like how you organize details in your head, it'll be very very apparent in your layers. If your layers are kind of all over the place, like it will show in your paintings, right? I think it does show because like your details all over the place, and I'm like looking at your layers, I'm like it's very much the same. Like you want to kind of make those two very organized. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's see if we can work just on this image by itself. All this looking nice, like really nice. Okay. But not even that, because it's not even hard to paint. A lot of it's just like hard angles. There's not real much texture going on here. It's just mostly organization. Okay.
Okay.
Cool. And then we'll talk about that on Monday. But I think we're in a good spot. It's just I gotta get you to kind of like take your time and not like get too much caught up in the actual painting of it, but more the organization. Okay.
All right.
Cool. And we can get there. It's just gonna take a little bit of time. So it's gonna suck. It's gonna suck because you're gonna be like, everything has to be on its own layer, and you have to make sure it's all there. But
yeah, I find it tedious, but I understand your point. Why it's necessary.
yeah,
Sure things are
because if you can't do this, like trust me when I say that you're not gonna be able to do a crazy ass sci-fi scene, right?
Yeah.
And then what happens when the director says, hey, you know that one piece in the back? Can we change that like by 20 degrees? And you're gonna be like, fuck my life. Why? Because you have all this layering on one thing right here, and now you gotta repaint half the fucking shit, right? You get what I'm saying? Right?
Yeah.
You don't want to be in a position like, and it goes to anyone that works professionally. You will be asked for changes, and I hate that shit. Like usually when you paint something, it's a concept. Like, dude, it's a concept. Like, who gives a fucking care, right? But they're gonna be like, can you change the color of that? And if you have layers, guess what? You can change that shit, but you can just lie to them. That's what I always do. Right? I lie. I go, yeah, it's gonna take me like 4 hours. It doesn't take me 4 hours. It takes me 2 seconds. But then I can go play fucking Overwatch for a little bit, and then they don't fucking know, right? Like that's the point of doing it. Like you're gonna be asked for changes, makes your life easier, okay? And then you can actually make variations off of it too. So like layering is so important, okay? Especially when it comes to complicated stuff like that. So get your layer game up, all right? What I want to see. No problem. I'm gonna spend a little bit of time with Tom towards the end. I see some juicy stuff here, just so you know. I see it. But I'm gonna go with Julia real quick, and we're gonna end with Tom today, and see what we got going. Miss Julia McQuaid. Sorry, I'm moving this out the way. How is it going, Julia? Let's see. Oh, sorry. Nikhil got something too. Let me. Let me download this in there. And we got one Riley. Okay, cool. Where's Riley? Sorry, see Riley's in. All right, Julia, what you got? Ooh, little thumbnails. Yeah, see, now we're kind of getting somewhere. Now we're having some fun here. The one thing I would say is the lineup's looking good, but in terms of how you're incorporating plants, I think what we're gonna have you do is do some plant studies. I'm not sure if I like the confidence in how you're kind of painting these things here a little bit. Right now they feel a little bit like kind of They feel they're not connecting into the ground that well. So what do I mean by that? Let's kind of like zoom out here and let's take a drawing that you've done. Let's actually kind of so I do the connection game here as kind of an example. So let's say there was a ground and a wall. Let's say you were drawing a pipe into the ground or into the wall that was going to go into the ground. Most people kind of just draw it like that, right? They're not thinking about the connection, right? It's like a favorite example. The problem with that is in real life, there's going to be connections, meaning that there's going to be a little bit of tapering. There's probably going to be a thicker piece. There's probably going to be a connection piece, and then that's going to go into the ground. There's all these things that kind of happen, connect one piece to the other. So if we draw that further down here, and we think about the translation of a rock with another rock with grass, we want to think about how does that transition? How do we go from, right? How do we go from the rock to the ground, right? That's kind of an important thing. So right now we just have a plant and it just goes into the ground. Well, in real life, there's going to be probably some dirt, some moss kind of connecting into the ground. There's probably going to be a little bit of dirt around it, probably because the rock is probably blocking it from the sun. There's probably going to be all kinds of little dirt stuff around it. And if there is, you know, if there is going to be plants around it, it's probably going to grow right outside, kind of thing right there. And how it's going to be sitting is there's kind of probably going to be rocks around it that we're going to want to draw so that it kind of blends in. And so we don't want floaty detail, Julia. That's what we're going for here. Floaty detail right there, no bueno, right? Because it never happens, which means that we have to then draw maybe smaller pieces of grass so that things can kind of blend into each other, right? We don't want there to be a floaty leaf in perspective. That usually doesn't happen, right? So there's probably going to be smaller stuff, little bushes and whatnot that we can draw, and then out of that we get a leaf, right? In that direction. So I want you to think about the connections there as you're drawing. Okay, that's a really, really important phase that I want you to kind of think about. Is how is one thing going down one axis here, right? This point, and how is it going outward? Okay, so connection is going to be like a really important part for you moving forward if you want to kind of, get that stuff out there. And the same thing right here, as this connection right here comes down, what are we doing to that? Is it just going to be this line? Maybe it's going to taper down. Maybe it's going to be like a rock kind of going in one direction than the other, right? We want to think about those connections. Same thing right here. The connection of connections and transitions is really, really important. I'm going to write that word down. And I want you to think of these words when you're painting. This is going to be really important. This is kind of the problem with Leonardo stuff is transitions. How are we transitioning from one thing to the other? So how do we transition from the rock to then the ground to then the water? And currently right now, what yours is like, it's just a line. And that feels very, very boring. So we want to find ways to kind of blend things into each other. It's going to be really, really hard to do. We want to see if we can, execute that at a high level. And we blend some stuff out. And I think once we get that, we can definitely move on as well in your pieces. So that's going to be the next thing. So I want you to kind of go grab some reference, look at some more waterfalls, I think. I'm not sure how much waterfalls you were looking at, but I think we can definitely look at some more. So maybe right there, lily pads is probably a great example. Maybe we can use lily pads as a way to kind of transition things from one to the other. And if we use those, then all of a sudden that goes in. Maybe there's some lily pads on the ground that maybe flew off, right? So now we're thinking about all these kind of transitional elements that we can use. And now we're getting a little bit more clever and things are looking a little bit nicer, okay? So that's what I want you to think about a little bit more here. And the same thing here. If we're going to transition from here to the wall, right, this piece right here, how does that work? Well, there might be some cracks, there might be some smaller rocks, and then maybe there might be some floating rocks, and then it kind of just, blends into itself. And so this is where environments get hard. This is probably where like you've had problems doing stuff. Is everything looks like it's kind of floating around. It doesn't look very cohesive. You gotta think about the transition from one piece to another. That's what I want you to think about is how we're kind of blending that piece out. So we can still work on this area as a whole for now. And I just want to think about how does one thing blend into the other. And when you do that, the meta of this, if you want to use that kind of gaming term, is then how do we then flow throughout the environment, right? So you have a kind of a flow transition. It's kind of like everything as a whole. Then you have the individual transition, which is kind of like these little pieces right here. How do they flow into each other? So it's, again, it's the primary read, a secondary read, tertiary read, right? Everything's in threes. So I want you to think about that as you're designing. Okay. So I would do that. I want you to bring in some reference as well. Bring in ref. And I also want a page of plant studies. I want you to draw them. So whatever plants these are, I want you to practice drawing them. So for example, if I was drawing banana leaves or whatever, I'd bring in a page. We want to figure out like how do we draw these things in a very interesting way. Right? If you look a bush or something like that, we want to know like how are you going to indicate a bush, in the future. And I want a page of all the kind of plants that you're seeing in your environment. I want to see that, how they're kind of layering on top of each other, all that kind of stuff. If there's like hanging vines, to know how do we break those down. Okay. So we've got a lot of work to put in, but this is going to help you out. So that way, when we get to this jungle stuff, you're going to kill it. Okay. So transitions, connections, bring in ref, and one page of studies. Okay. Let's get that going, and I think we're going to be in a good spot. But again, transitions and connections, really, really important. Okay. So transitions in terms of individual, and then also compositional. And do I have any good reference? That's easy. That's like Lilo and Stitch, man. My favorite movie, because you know me, our Hawaiians. I can type in Lilo and Stitch. See, there's plenty of it. You just gotta search. Gotta search like environment, line art, jungle stuff. So if I were to type in layout. Sorry, wrong word. Here we go. Look at all that shit. Hell yeah. All right. And my question to you is, like, what did you type in originally when you looked for reference? Did you look, or were you not looking, or what were you trying to find? Ah, okay. Well, there you go. So now we are in the money, right? We have found some stuff. It's all there for you. So let's see here. What can we grab? I mean, there's all kinds of good stuff in here. Let's see. I want to use like something like this, I think. I mean, there's actually some better ones too. Here's a great one. It's awesome. Like Paul Felix right there. Boom. Let's visit that shit. Oh yeah. That's for you. Have that. Paul Felix is a G. Right? Look at all that cheddar, right? Look at all that cheese. Look, it's good. It's good. See all that stuff? How it's conditioning from little pieces throughout, and where he's giving space, where he's not giving space. where he's adding stuff in here. It is a great fucking like where he's letting stuff like not be too detailed. We talked about that idea, right? It's like detail right here, not so detailed right there. Like you can learn so much shit just by staring at this piece for probably like a couple hours. Like it's amazing. That's where we got to be, right? And I want you to start to kind of think in that way, that nature. Okay? So let's get it going. Like you could totally get there. It's just a matter of just putting in the hours, like putting in like the grind. Armand Serrano is a good one as well. He does some baller ass stuff. Yeah. All right, we can grab all that shit. It's all great. I don't know why it's not letting me. Can't can't show it, but here. There we go. Cool. Let's do it. Let's make it happen. Okay, I'm gonna say that out for you. You're gonna have that, and we're gonna go to there. So I want you to get to that level, and then once we get there, then we can talk about this. But you'll see that like your same kind of issues that you're having in this work right here is very apparent in the drawing stuff right here. So it's hard to kind of want to move forward with you until we can kind of really understand that you can like you can really draw before we can go into the value stuff. Okay, because drawing comes before painting, unfortunately. So it's a good start. I like the fact that we're kind of doing our own compositions. Um, yeah, but and I definitely want to help you with this eventually. But I think let's focus on this, and I guarantee you what will happen, Julia, is that when this improves, this will improve. Like walking before running. Okay, so very nice. What class is that, by the way? I'm actually kind of curious. Sorry, we're gonna go to Riley, then Nikhil, and Tom. I want to spend time with Tom and the juice. All right. Riley. Okay. Incomplete. What the? Yeah, we only have one. What's going on?
I just mismanaged my time.
Okay.
I have other projects.
Okay. Alrighty. Alrighty. Well, so on this piece, it's looking pretty decent. What I would suggest is having certain things on its own layer. By the way, so let's kind of just work this out a little bit for myself. Let's see here. All right, I'm gonna paint over the whole thing here just real quickly. So right now, I think we're kind of missing out on some of like the strokes that you can get from here, because there's a lot of interesting texture and stuff like that too with the composition. So what I would suggest is, when you're painting this thing, all right, we'll start with the white here, and then we'll start with another layer, kind of like this value here, and then yeah. So I'm just gonna do a quick little line art here. Hopefully this will work. Make sure that we have a good layer separation with stuff. So I would try to separate that into a couple of different layers. And looks like it's gonna be 2, yeah, 3, 4. Sure, that works. Maybe. Boom. Cool. I would separate this into a couple different layers. So this will make it a lot easier to kind of add texture. So number one, I think what we could do is I'll just use my trusty square brush, and I'll make one dark layer underneath it, which is like right here, And then that will be like layer one, right? And then underneath that, underneath this one, we'll probably have this piece right here, which will be layer two. We'll kind of push that in there. And then I will use a rounder brush to get all of that stuff to work all nicely for me. And we'll have that on its own layer. And you probably have this issue too when you're trying to like when you want to paint like the inside of it. When you want to paint like this part right here, I hate that shit because then like it's really easy to kind of like mess it up. So I always put that on a different layer as well, by the way. So as soon as I like get this shape that I like, I make a layer underneath it, and that's going to be a lighter layer. So like so. And I'm going to like link it there. And so that's important to me because then when I want to add like certain details, like I can do that with much more ease. So anything something overlaps, you want to have it on its own layer. It just makes your life that much more easier. Okay. So, and I'll show you why this is like really nice later on in a second, because when you have things separated like piece by piece, it's like, man, it's much easier, especially architectural stuff. Like it just makes your life that much easier as you're kind of painting. And so then we have this other piece right here. So I could do a couple things right now. Like what I would probably do is I would just duplicate this guy, and then I would actually put it behind it, and I would just make it smaller. So it's like right, like right there. But I would just make it lighter. So now we're working harder, not smarter. All right, we're working smarter, not harder. And there we go. And as we, get those angles right, I would then put another layer behind that guy, and then that layer would be even lighter. Let's see here. Boom. There we go. And then in front of this guy, it would be this whole little piece right here. So let me break that down. So the same thing that Scott had, right? All these problems with, and the same thing with like Leonardo had, right? It's like, yeah, there's so much shit, right? And it's like, I don't want to draw all that stuff. And I hear you. I totally hear you. Neither do I. But when it becomes to do something that's like requires a high level of execution, like this stuff is really imperative that you nail it down. So now what's really nice about all this stuff is that, let's say maybe underneath this guy we'll put a white or ground plane. This now becomes way easier to design and add stuff. So, for example, if I now lock the transparency of every layer that I have, once I organize it, let's say that I want to use my texture brush, my favorite one. This is my favorite one for adding like architectural stuff. So if I go to this guy, let's say that I want to add it in. Look at that. I love this brush. Brush is my favorite. It's great to like. It really just solves my problems, right? Boom. See how much cleaner the image is gonna look because I separated everything. Like that makes all of the difference. So now if I want to add in like these little highlights or whatever, I can do that, right? Very easy. Boom, boom, clean, nice and clean. You want clean stuff. And the nice part too is that I go, oh shit, well, damn, I don't have to worry about painting over that. You want to know why? Because I did that shit already, right? So now I can go in there and I can, same thing to that layer, but I don't have to then worry about those issues, right? Now if I want to add stuff in there, I don't have to now worry about like, am I gonna paint over the wrong layer? It's gonna be clean, right? That's an important thing. That's an important thing to think about. Now I can go to this layer. Oh, look at this layer. Now if I want to maybe add a little bit of a darkness to it, some kind of gradation, I can do that now because it's all designed out, right? It's all in there. I can look at this guy right here and I can say, oh, you know what? This guy looks like it wants to kind of go sideways. So as I'm doing that, I can now go sideways. I can slowly work that out. Then I can go to this guy, right? Boom. So much easier than what you have, right? So in theory, if your stuff is like organized and it's well thought out, trust me when I say you ain't gotta do shit. Like it's just more so like, can you break things down? And when you break things down, it's much, much easier to organize. You see how much work I got done with that? Let's see. Oh, all right. Where's Riley at? Riley, where are you at? He's at? Is he alive? I don't know if I can hear him. Why can't I hear him? Oh, there you are. Boom.
My internet's lagging out pretty bad.
Okay. Anyways, you just saw how easy that was, right? To block that out. Yeah. So there you go. Like, so when you do this study, it shouldn't take you that long, honestly. Like, if you are organizing your stuff out correctly, same thing with Scott, same thing with Leonardo. Like, guys, when you have your layers like properly like spaced out and properly like thought of, like it's way way easier to then design. And then once you get to a point where like you now want to paint over everything, then you can kind of do the I'm gonna paint on everything on one layer. But until then, like you gotta have this going. Okay. So in terms of the value structure, still keep it simple. Mine's simple. There's still a little bit of texture on there, but that blockout phase that I want to see that you have like down. Okay, so bring that to me on Monday, man. I want to see this and I want to know that it's like everything is well organized. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I know you can do it. Like this is this.
Am I finding it?
You can find every piece if you want to. I think this one's a good example because there's a lot of overlap, but it's your call. I'll let you kind of set your own sail. But I also want to see some of your own, remember, too. So let's get that going too as well. Okay. So let's get it going.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Layers, guys. I'm telling you guys, you gotta use like, because at that point, if you're not gonna use layers, then like you might as well just paint traditionally. That's kind of what traditional painting is. It's just like it's the same struggle, it's just you don't have layers. So it's like don't make your life harder for yourself. Use that stuff. It will work. Yeah. Yes, there's a lot of stuff to kind of get across that becomes harder, but like the ability to be flexible with your designs is very, 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 very awesome. Okay. Fuck yeah. Mr. Nikhil is going in today. See, now we're like now we're getting somewhere. Like now I see Nikhil is putting in the work a little bit here.
Right.
Hi. This took you a long time, didn't it?
Yeah. It did.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
It looks good though, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's look at the older one. Let's see. Where's Nikhil?
It's there on another layer.
Oh, it is?
The older one, yeah.
Okay, let me see. Okay.
The original line art one is just opacity is less. Yeah, that one. It's the opacity is less.
Oh, okay. Let me just turn off everything here real quickly and stuff. So that was the one. Is it that one? No. Line art. Oh, maybe it's block outs grid. Line art. Okay, yeah, there we go. It's this one, right? Line art copy. Yeah, see that one, not so good. It's like not the It's all right. But then this one that we did here, uh, I feel like we're getting somewhere with this one, and the fact that you have it all like separated now, that's even better. See that? You have to use layers, man. That's what I'm talking about. Like this looks way stronger too. And just for the sake of argument, we can just we'll just download this guy. The hell of it. I think it's a work in progress, but like now we're starting to kind of have fun with some of these little extra details. A couple of suggestions I would say is let's not be afraid to kind of push some things out here in terms of the design. So let's take a look here at your older one. Like just so we can see how far you come and think it's just really line art. This is important to show. Like it's gonna like I know it's gonna take you like a longer time to learn this. You know what I mean? So like most like places, most schools or whatever would be like, this is good, right? And they're like, cool, move on, right? But it's like, nah, that's that's good. Like like we're now taking more time or putting more love into things. That's what I want to see. Okay. One thing we can think about here is just getting a little bit of thickness in certain places here, just a little bit. But I will say this weekend we can move on. I want you to expand off of here. Okay. I want to see how you expand on this guy. Um, it's gonna look nice, I think, when we're done. So, and especially in certain places like right here, where there's like a lot of like overlap going on, I want to see a little bit more thickness given to some of the bigger parts, a lot of the structural parts. Okay, and I maybe want to tone down some of the detail here, some of like these lines because they get a little bit too busy. So I would suggest maybe erasing a little bit some of that stuff here. Like, so I'm just gonna erase a little bit of it, like not too much, because I like what you did, but I don't know if I want like that much detail in there. So because you already kind of know that it's wood by the way that you're drawing it. So uh, yeah, I want to kind of like bring that down just a little bit, so that way when you paint over it, it's like not as intense. Yeah. So let's kind of get some more line variation in here. So this is going to help out as well. So all we're doing is we're kind of just making some of these areas a little bit more thicker than others. So any kind of silhouette that's happening in there, we definitely want to make it a little bit thicker. So this line right here in particular, probably should be like a decent thickness. This is probably me. This is me exaggerating a little bit, but that's probably too much actually. So let me go back one. Uh, there you go. So probably like there. We want to kind of exaggerate this thickness here a little bit, um, just because we really want that to stand out. And then because of this guy right here, we then want the same thing. And so now you can see, like, if I turn this on and off, can you see the difference there in terms of how it's standing out? So little things like that is what I would like. Be careful on these transitions right here. Remember, we definitely want to feel like the individual bricks are a little bit thicker probably on these little sides right here. So just make sure that we're connecting those a little bit and we're not relying on this line here. So sometimes like don't draw the line. See what happens there when you don't draw it? Now we're kind of like forced to like think about it, you know what I mean? Like how it's connecting to the one connecting over. So I would probably get rid of that line a little bit there. Because that shouldn't be a line actually. It should just be like we're just looking at a couple different blocks in perspective. So don't have it connect all the way through because it flattens the image out. So think about how these pieces connect. So how does this piece connect from here, right? To then go here. See the difference there? We wanna feel that connection. Okay. So that's probably one of them as well. Let's see here. This guy probably gonna need a little bit of a thicker line. So anything that's kind of like architecturally like important, like this, like the framing of the the framing of this house, we want to kind of give that a little bit of extra emphasis. It will just make it feel like it's more three-dimensional, and it'll make it feel like it's like more architecturally sound, like it can stand on its own 2 feet, right? We want it to feel like that. So that's a good place to be. And then you can throw in some darker shapes, here and there, just to kind of give it a little bit more kind of like a marker feel. So I kind of do that sometimes. And we probably don't need these individual lines in there, I don't think. Just some darker lines here and there, and that will probably make it stand out. And I think we're good to go, dude. Like this is good. It feels like if I were to draw a person, like they fit in every capacity as well.
There's one layer on the first layer on the top, right on the top.
Yeah, humans. Yeah, there we go. See, much better. Cool. Yeah, now we can have fun. Like now we can design. We can focus on the cool stuff. So let's expand this out a little bit. Let's see, like, kind of just go out in every direction. I feel like, and get this guy going. Like let's see what we can design outward. So let's finish up this house. The next thing is going to be like what's going to be. So you saw me talking to Julia and the people about the transitions. That's going to be the next thing. So how do we transition from this plane to that plane, right? Everything, especially in medieval times, that transition is going to be really, really, really important. And I want to make sure that we don't just have it floating on space. So is there going to be, grass kind of blended in? Are there going to be rocks around it? Is there going to be some kind of dirt? What are we going to have? Are there going to be maybe wood planks? Right?
Maybe some boxes and barrels.
Yeah, are there going to be some boxes? All that kind of stuff. So now we have it very, very bare right now, but now we can start to kind of add some stuff, in there. Are there going to be stuff like the wall? Is there going to be like a shed? Is there going to be a treasure chest? Think of it like an RPG where you go and you find some stuff. Are there going to be clothes hanging off? Right? All that kind of stuff. This is why this stuff is really hard to do, because you literally are an architecture. You're an architect. You're literally creating a world that has like people and places. Where's the walkways going to be? How do I get to the house? Is there going to be a fence around it? Like all this kind of stuff. Transitions, right? So I want you to think about transitions, and let's get this going. Transitions and connections. But I am much happier with that, and you should be too with this piece, because now it's like you've now proven to me that we can draw this out, and now we can go with it. So transitions, connections. Don't worry about the roofs just yet. We'll find out ways to approach that. I think the roofs get a little bit complicated there. But also, let's fix this guy up too. A little bit too much dirt here. You know what I mean? So, and again, remember when we draw pipes and stuff, like, don't. The pipe should probably have like something on the end of it, kind of fix the thickness there a little bit. And if you're gonna draw like a pipe that's like going in this direction, right? It's probably gonna have that, So just think about just how you're drawing that out, okay? And I'd probably look at some more chimney reference. I'm not sure how that's blending in. It's like the right way. So get like chimney reference. Okay. Once we get that though, we are good to go. And don't be afraid to like put windows here too. Like in there, just add silhouette, that kind of stuff. Okay. Cool. Well done, dude. This is a great spot. This is a great place. So now if we start designing everything out, we can get a nice fucking line art piece for you by the time we're done.
So I have a question.
Yes, sir.
So do I have to like, I mean, in general, in a piece, would every surface have to be textured, or it need not be textured?
In terms of the roof, I don't think we need to texture it right now. I'd rather you get the architecture first, because that can be like one pass. Roofs are kind of like very tedious, and they're not that hard to do. Like they kind of are hard to do, but we haven't figured out a way we want to do it yet. And I kind of like the way you're doing it here. You're kind of implying it, so we'll probably do something like that for now. But in terms of texture, I don't think we need to worry about it. Like I just want you to expand outward, and I want to see if we can get to the same level of quality here. So there isn't much texture here. I don't want to focus on texture. I want just like strong lines. Okay, strong lines, strong designs. All right, cool. This is good. See, guys, I'm telling you, man. When you put in that work, like it's gonna look amazing. And we could even do Nikhil one better. And it's only been like a week, right? It's only been like a week since he was designing, and we can even go to the first one here. I think that you did that was like your progress of your town, and let's download that real quickly, just so we can just see that progress. I think that's really important. That again in this class, like I'm gonna work you. Like I'm gonna make sure that you are like really thinking about like how much you can get better at something, right? And that's what you turned in week one, right? Think about that. Like week one, you're like, I'm the shit, right? And now we're like, nah, dude. Like you can be way stronger than that. Right? Just within literally 2 weeks, of just refining and really thinking about stuff. Like now, any house you ever design, stuff like that, it needs to be at this level. Okay. So that's what I want to see from you some more. Okay. So good job. No problem. All right. Let me save this out. Boot camp. Now it's time for the juice. Time for the juice, Tom. Do I have juice? I'm thirsty. There's a quest for the return of the juice. Yeah. See? See the difference there? Like this right here? You clever bastard. I see what you're doing. Clever bastard. This is nice. This is what I'm talking about. It's not quite there yet, but like now we're thinking. You see the difference there though? Like it's like you're like how you're thinking of every stroke now. I can tell you're like, how does every piece blend into each other, right? How does it like serve? And that's what I'm talking about. And you even like the way you did the birds, like you made them like you made them smaller as they go further back, right? You did that on purpose.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. Like before, the reason why this doesn't work is because you weren't painting with intention, if that makes sense. When you paint with intention, I can tell that you're thinking about every stroke that you put down in your composition, right? And here, I don't see the intention. But here, I can feel the intention. I can feel that you are really trying to concentrate and you're thinking about it. And that's what I want to see more out of you throughout this week, okay? So paint with more intention. That's great. Like I want to see more of this. Like this is going in the right direction. How did this feel going for you? Was it hard? Was it like you're like fuck my life?
Yeah, it was like hard not to want to do another time. And then there are a few times where I really normally said it's finished, but that's like, oh, I'll keep trying. Like, you did clean up things or change things, try like, yeah, work on one thing rather than loads.
Yeah. So the one thing that I'm gonna say is you want to try to avoid these little things right here, because these parts don't feel intentional to me, at least. Where we get these little things, right? These little like weird stuff. There's not much of a flow to it, right? It's like this part has like a rounder edge and it's like a hard edge. See that? Like these little parts kind of like are not in the best, like they're really random, but they don't seem like they're intentional. So you have a lot of like weird like kind of cuts in here. We want to kind of eliminate that. So that's where we just have to kind of paint with like a bigger stroke and really kind of like just practice that idea. It takes a little bit of time, trust me. So like the fact that you're able to do this in a week, like it's much more clear. So hopefully you can see how much more graphical that is than what you're doing before. So we're in the right ballpark. It's just now we just got to go a little bit further with it. And so I'm sorry that I'm gonna like nitpick you on this, but like this is what's gonna separate you from like other people that will put you in the same category as like the Shaddies and the Atons. You know what I mean? Like their stuff when they paint, it has such intention to it that like every line just feels like it's very, very nice. And so if I were to kind of like And let's actually take a look at someone's work here, and let's take a look at Shaddy's work here, just in particular. I think it's the first thing that comes to mind right now in terms of what you're trying to do. Let's see. Let's type in Shaddy. Okay. I think this is kind of important for everyone, as like because a lot of people are doing studies in this class, so I think this will kind of apply to everyone actually. So let's kind of dial in here and pay attention to what we're going to talk about. And it's the idea of intention. I enter full screen here, and I'm gonna drag this piece over. Okay, this is what I wanted actually from it. So, this is a great piece for a lot of different reasons. One of them is intention, but one of them is at every point you know what's going on in your piece, in the piece. So meaning that if I were to take this and I were to move this, at every point, the way that he is detailing and the way that he's painting with these kind of small intentional strokes, there's never a point in this piece where you don't understand what you're looking at. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right? You can totally understand that that's a tree, that's whatever. And even though it's like very stylized, you still get it because his organization of detail is really, really good. Right? So that's like the next level shit, right? Like you can see how he's breaking stuff down little by little. Like it always like it's like a really masterful painting. It's like fuck this guy. It's like really, really strong. Despite it being so simple, understand it. So we're in the right ballpark in there. So we're totally like close. But with that, you never really see kind of random strokes, and I want you to kind of practice this kind of idea with your edges here. And this is going to take some time, and a lot of it is how you are painting additively and how you are painting subtractively, meaning that when you make a stroke, how are you subtracting from that stroke? And so as I'm kind of painting, and if you don't have like a art pen, I really recommend you get one.
I'm not sure. I think I've got the bamboo one that work with that.
Yeah, so you may need to get like a. So this may be the time where you need to upgrade your shit a little bit. So this may be what's kind of hurting you. Is maybe you're trying to do this, or maybe you can't because of the equipment. So if you can, I think it's time to upgrade to like an Intuos 4 if you're serious about this. So as I'm kind of like painting these in, like I'm making a big stroke, and as I erase, I'm trying to erase in a very kind of like interesting, sort of classy way that we're not like right there. That's kind of ugly. So I have to kind of go back and try to figure out a better way to erase it from that piece. So I might be kind of turning it sideways a little bit, and I'm hoping that as I begin to kind of draw these little shapes, I'm going to find little pockets of visual interest of light to dark, right? See the difference there than what we have right here? You feel kind of randomness in there?
Yeah.
That's what we're kind of looking for here. That takes a long time to kind of practice and kind of see, but that's what we're kind of looking for, I think, as a whole, is we want to be able to kind of get these nice, everything feels like super fucking nice, like when you're kind of doing it. And actually, I can even show you a better example than what I'm painting right now. Let's take a look at Ruo Lee. And Ruo Lee fucking depresses me because he's so fucking good at it. And it's like, this dude does it fucking traditionally. And I can barely do that shit digitally. But he fucking just nails it every time. Like, it's like, he's so comfortable, it scares me on like how good he is. And so let's take a look at Ruo Lee real quick. So we can all cry. Want to cry with me? Let's have a little crying session of how much we don't fucking know about stuff. Ruo Lee, dude. It's in fucking Texas of all places. Right? You can look at his piece right here, and it's like you can see every like stroke that he puts in is like super juicy. Like these little negative shapes right here, like there isn't like one bad awkward stroke throughout his piece. and it's like I don't understand. Like right here, right? You can see that light, those little shapes in there that he's making. That's what I'm talking about. Like he gets it. He understands like how to make like how he carves form is like just unheard of. Like these shapes all feel really really nice, and you're there. Like you're totally getting there. It's just like how do we then execute that a little bit better? So as I'm kind of painting these things out, I'm wanting to like again carve a little bit more. So I'm turning my brush, and this is where like an art pen might honestly change your life. Like just because it's like you can turn the brush a lot easier, and you can get like softer shapes right away. So it seems like maybe you are understanding it. I didn't know you were working off of bamboo, to be honest, and had I known that, I probably would have told you to upgrade a long time ago. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
I
so
went on quite a big push of like not trying to to how to change. That's why I never tried to upgrade.
yeah, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, so it isn't about the tool, right? It isn't about the individual brushes. It's what you think of. But at the same time, like if you're playing soccer, right? Like, and you're using a boot that like doesn't have any grip, so that means like you can't kick a ball. It's like you know how to kick a ball, but it's like at some point you have to put on like good cleats so that way you can properly like plant your foot and not slip. You know what I mean? So at some point when when we all have the same tools, then we can say, okay, it's not about the tool anymore because everyone's the same tool, but you're still not doing good work. But at this point, like you at least need the bare minimum, and I would say like getting a Wacom, like an Intuos, is pretty important. I think. Now I do know some people that use bamboos, but they're like texture artists and they don't need that kind of painting. But I think for like environments, you would at least need like an Intuos to kind of really kind of get some of these subtle paint strokes in here. Um, that's kind of important, I would say, in my professional opinion. So if you can get it, like get it like as a birthday gift or whatever if your birthday's coming up. Um, and you can always buy one used too if you want to. My friend just bought one used, and he like works professionally. He's like, I don't want to pay for it. The one that I have is just the Intuos. It's like the Intuos Pro. This one right here. Yeah, this is all I need. Like, I've had this for a long time, and it's great. Like, it's like you can see it in there. It's all scratched up and shit. It's all you need, man. That's like, it's good. It'll last you a long time. It's got like a wireless capabilities in there, but I would think it's time to upgrade. And if you and opacity is less inside. No, sorry. Yeah, and what's gonna happen is like you're gonna get nicer strokes. Usually when you paint with those kind of things, what's gonna happen is like the program begins to average things out because you don't have that kind of sensitivity. So meaning like if you press like really 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 light, because the bamboo like isn't as good as the Intuos, it kind of begins to average things out, and so you're losing control a little bit, and you kind of don't want that. So hopefully you can see as I'm kind of painting here. Let me turn this on and off just so you can kind of see here, like what I just did. See the difference there in terms of like the edges.
Yeah.
There's a little more of a softness to it. So maybe you want to soften those edges and kind of round some of these edges out. I think that's kind of like the big thing here. But we're getting close to that juice. The juice is there. I'm just kind of taking some of these edges and I'm really trying to like draw through the form, meaning that I'm really trying to like use my whole wrist and really try to soften up these edges here so that way they look like really really nice. That's what I'm trying to do here. Because again, water is kind of soft and you're not even going to usually get that kind of stuff, so we want to be very very careful how we're doing it. So like right here, I imagine maybe we don't want to have that, you know. So maybe because of like perspective, right? We can kind of have these little shapes in here like that. So like that has a nice flow to it, I would say, where like that makes sense. And so little stuff like this is gonna be key. Kind of painting that out. Yeah. So what we did is we turned that into that, right? Like now we are finding that juice, and like it's like one brushstroke at a time. Very, very like when I paint, by the way, I'm not sure if you do this. Do you have music on when you paint?
Musical podcast.
Yeah, I would try to like not do that. That sounds really weird. When you're painting, by the way, guys, especially when you're learning, it's gonna take like a lot of fucking like brain power. So I would try to not have music on, like at least a couple times when you're doing this, just to see like what you can do when you have like full concentration. And so I think people kind of estimate like, oh, I can paint while watching a movie, I can paint while doing stuff. Um, that kind of comes when you're like comfortable, when like you've been doing it for a while, that you get bored, and so now you kind of need that. But as you're learning, like you kind of need to like be locked in. So like when I'm painting, especially when I'm doing this kind of stuff where it requires a lot of like brain power for me personally, like I don't have shit on. Like I'm just sitting there, I'm like trying to breathe, like make sure that I'm breathing, and I'm just like I was like a fucking weirdo when I paint sometimes. So I'm like literally sitting there, like I'm looking at the camera, like and I'm like, uh, and then like I back up, and I look at it, and I go, and I'm like I am fucking locked in. A lot of times I have my headphones on just so people won't bother me. So like I don't have anything on, but people think I'm listening to music and stuff, and they're like, oh, I don't want to bother him. He's listening to something. And I'm like, no, I just don't want you to talk to me. I'm like in the zone. So that's what I would suggest moving forward is like try to paint this, try to like work on this. So I want you to work on this some more, and see if we can kind of get that juicy quality there. And so the same thing here with like the clouds. Um, not quite there yet, but um, I want to see what happens when you don't have anything on.
Yeah.
So now it's how we're kind of like I'm kind of I soften those clouds up a little bit there, like that kind of changes it a little bit. So right now I think it's like your edge quality. So I want you to practice. I want you to think about like hard and soft edges and see how that kind of yeah. So that's what I'm talking about. So we're there. The quest for the juice is on. We're in there. And I would look some more at like Leonid's work. I think I posted his work already in the chat. Um, I'll post it one more time actually. I think he has a great sense of like Leonid and like Florent like have a great sense of like just visual graphic reads. I'm actually gonna meet Florent actually, by the way. I'm gonna meet him in like March. It's gonna be dope. It's gonna be like hell yeah. So I'm really excited about it, actually. Um, so I'll probably tell you what I learned from him when I talk to him. But that's what I'm looking for. Okay. I really want to think about that edge quality. Okay. So think of hard edges and soft edges. Where are we doing that now? And now you can see the difference there. That versus that. Right. Very subtle, but
Yeah.
now we are kind of less lasso tooly, and now we're thinking about the strokes. Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't want you to lasso at all, if at all possible. Okay. I want you to kind of like make the strokes, right? Okay. But other than that, it's much better, right? This is the next step. So I'm gonna make you keep doing this until we like get it. And once you get it, you'll be like, damn, dude, like now I know what I can do, and now I'm not gonna paint any other way ever again.
Yeah.
And once you get here, this is once you get to this next level, which I think is probably maybe like two more levels away, probably where you're from. That's when you get to like the payment, or now you can get paid. Okay, that's what I want for you. Okay, cool. All right, I'm gonna save this out. Let's keep working on this composition. I think it's a good composition. It has a lot of good potential, and we'll keep going from there. Okay. Let's focus on those edges.
Just the one again.
Yeah, just that one. I think this is a great. I think this one's like in a good spot. I think like you're making a lot of progress on it. So I want you to focus on that. Okay. So good stuff. Good stuff. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. So everyone's doing pretty good. Like I don't really have any issues. I think everyone's like learning stuff. But I just want you guys to think about layers and thinking about organization. That's like the big things I'm seeing right now. Is use layers to your advantage. Learn to organize stuff before we get into the textury stuff. Again, if you can't organize your ideas or your thoughts like in like the layers, it's going to be very very apparent in your work as a whole. Okay, so think about your layering, think about how you're organizing, think about overlap, and think about your edges. You know, hard and soft edges. That's really important. But most importantly, paint with intent. Okay, I don't want your stuff to look like you're kind of guessing. There has to be a clear intention with your painting. And I think if you do that, your guys' work will skyrocket when you're painting with intention. And I think this is a good example right here of Tom, in terms of him like not being so random and then learning to paint with more intention. Really think about each stroke. If you are listening to music, if you are being distracted, I would recommend too, because this stuff is very, very brain heavy, even for me. Um, Turn off music, turn off stuff. Try to go like a good hour of like just no one fucking bother me. I'm locked in. Don't think about anything. Put your phone away and just like think about the task at hand and just focus on your breathing and just think about this shit. Guarantee you're gonna get way more work done. It's gonna be way better. Okay. So handle that shit. Let's get it done. Um, yeah. So I think we're done for the day. A good class. We are now officially halfway through. So let's keep the momentum going because we only got 2 more weeks for a lot of you guys. Okay. So if you have any questions, just message me personally and we'll get it going. But if not, like I'm gonna see y'all, I guess tomorrow. I guess. Yeah, I mean it's not tomorrow. I'm gonna see y'all on Monday. So you have a weekend. So let's get it going. Okay. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Appreciate it, Corey, Julia, Nikhil, Riley, Scott, Tom. What's good, dude? Have a good weekend, man. I'll see you guys when I see you.
Cheers, have a good weekend.
All right. Cheers. All right. See you, Felix. Join me.